to the place where singles shine, celebrating life, divine by design. In faith and love, we intertwine. Route 77, where your journey's prime.
Welcome to a very special episode of the Route 77 podcast. Join us as we delve into the profound and often unspoken journey of single parenthood and raising a child with special needs. Today's story is not just about challenges and hardships, but also about miraculous hope, divine intervention, and the unbreakable bond between a mother and her daughter. Join us as we explore the intricacies of faith, love, and resilience in the face of adversity.
Welcome to the Route 77 podcast. I am Natasha, your host, and I am here with Monique. Hello. No David today. He's got a ginormous midterm to get done and is working very hard trying to get that done. Pray for that. One of the things that I would like to talk about on this podcast, because we talk a lot about singles and the freedom of being single and all this type of thing, which is just a nuance of being single. But sometimes we forget or we don't address the fact that some single people are parents. And that can be a different dynamic because you don't have that other person. That's usually you share the struggles of parenthood and the joys and all these things of parenthood with. Yeah. And also some people have a special needs child that they're a single parent to. And just that comes with its own huge challenges. Exactly. I've seen it quite a number of times where one spouse, usually the father, but I would say 100%, I just say a lot higher percentage, is nope. And there are some men though who are like, I follow them on Facebook. Oh, it's my sister-in-law's brother. Right. And his wife. And they are an amazing couple because they have actually adopted two severely handicapped children. And I follow them on Facebook and they talk about the challenges that they have as well, because they have medications and doctor's appointments and feeding tubes. And it's challenging as a couple, but they've got each other. That helps to balance the stress of taking care of a special needs child. But when you're a single parent, whether it's because of death or abandonment or it just wasn't there for you, whatever the circumstances are, and you're a single parent with a special needs child, well, the challenges become far greater. And if you don't have a support system, they can be insurmountable. Because you have the almost luxury in a sense of having someone that can full-time care for your daughter. Yeah. I know that my parents' neighbor has 3 autistic boys and 2 of them are like high, just very low functioning in a sense where there's not a lot of control. They're older than their 20s, so they're very strong and can destroy things. And it's just her she's tried the system a few times and it's just been not great for them. So she loves them so much, so she doesn't want to put them in the system, and yet it's hard on her. And I'm not saying it's a luxury for you in a sense like you got it easy, but I just mean there is like people that don't even have that. It's amazing because our system really is broken in that respect, because I hear it. And I have a stepsister who has multiple sclerosis and she's in care. And I know that my stepmom dad, she struggles with making sure that her daughter gets proper care. And her daughter is not that much younger than me, but she can't do anything for herself anymore. She's pretty much skin and bones. But through bed sores and being left alone and not being pain properly, in a sense, I did. When Amber was young and the ministry and I were fighting over whether I could keep her or not, because I had no support system and I had no money. I was a single mom. So it made it where she actually had, go this weekend, have a ball. So I'll try that. She was probably about 4 years old at that time. I had nobody. And the ministry, for various reasons that I don't believe are necessary for this story to get into, why the ministry and I, it wasn't because I was doing anything wrong. They just were not sure that I had the
skill set. I didn't have the skills, the support, or the money. And the horrible thing about these kind of situations is that you don't get money to take care of a special child. You are expected to be able to deal with it yourself. You're expected to deal with it with family members. You should, like any parent who has a child, you should be able to provide for it regardless of its abilities. But if you give the child into care, they will pretty much almost give hand over fist to give monies to Marlena gets 40 hours of support care. So they're people who are paid for 40 hours who will come into her home and help sit with Amber, give her respite care. She also gets respite care. She gets paid herself as well as a caregiver, a home share support person. And Amber gets money. So this
wasn't available, and so you gave up your rights.
Yeah, even the ministry. And you can ask anybody who will tell you, yeah, there is no money for the parents because you're expected to take care of a child that you birth. If you adopt them, it's the same situation. So you are better off to be a foster parent of a special needs child rather than adopting it, because the minute you adopt it, that child becomes yours and now it's your responsibility and any monies are cut off. So that was a struggle that I had. And she was with another family at that time who were, in a sense, through the ministry, were trying to force me to give up my rights to my daughter. And I remember this one time where I was with her in the wheelchair, and the wheelchair wasn't made for being outside. So it tipped over. I had a panic attack. I grabbed Amber, ran to the doctor's, made sure, check her, make sure she's okay. And the foster mom was running after me, and she said, "Don't you ever do that again." And I broke down. I had an emotional, mental breakdown. I could not stop crying because I felt useless. And it was the hardest decision for me. But one of my giftings from the Holy Spirit that I have is that I have wisdom and words of knowledge, a prophecy thing. So every now and then I hear God speak to me. Now, I'm not saying I hear voices that tell me all these kind of really strange things, but I will hear certain words from God that are very important. I remember once I was praying for my ex and I said stuff to him and his eyes were like saucers and he's going, "Why did you say that to me?" And I'm going, "What did I say?" I had no idea what I said. He says, "You don't know what you said?" And he's like, "Wow, that was amazing." And I'm just like, I still to this day do not know what I said. But that day I heard God tell me she will always be loved. And maybe that was something that I was struggling with, thinking that nobody could love her like me. I gave her up at that time. And my stipulation, though, to the ministry was that they were never allowed to not let me see her. I was allowed to see her whenever I wanted and I've never let that go. So once that happened, she actually got moved from that family. They actually didn't want to deal with her anymore. I don't want to put it like that, but they had other plans that they wanted to do. They didn't want to do the fostering. They didn't want to deal with the system anymore. And I think they saw too what was happening and they didn't like it, because I actually ran into that foster mother a few years after, and she apologized to me for how she treated me. And she said, "The ministry was forcing us to turn you into somebody who was not capable of taking care of your daughter. And we are so sorry for that because we were wrong." So to have them do that was a balm to my soul for that. In hindsight, I believe that God always has a purpose. So when he put them in this family, Marlena's family, where her mother was taking care of her, it was a good family. It was a good fit. They were so good to her. And it's true. Everybody who meets her loves her almost on the spot. It's just, there is something about her that when people meet her, it's almost instantaneous. I love you right now. Why? Yeah. And that's the thing that I get, like from complete strangers who meet her, even for the first time. It's just like, oh my gosh, how can I not? Like when the nurses come to take care of her and they're like, oh, it's you. I'm so glad it's you. I look at this kind of going, God, what did you do here? It's so amazing.
So, where did your faith, like, when did you become a Christian in Holland?
Before all of this, actually, Amber was two when I became a Christian, and her disability didn't happen. And she was a year old. I know it was May. I think it was probably when she was a year old. Yeah, she was a year old. And I was in a really bad place. So then, because her accident happened when she was 3. And that's the thing that, like, when that happened too, like my mom, how can you still believe in God when this happened? And I could still literally say that that it's not God's fault. I'm pretty sure that God never wanted this to happen to her, but man sins. And that's,
And I think sometimes we respond like, how can I survive this if I didn't believe in God?
and I have held to that for the whole entire time because there has been so many times when I did not think I could survive if it weren't for hanging on to the coattails of God. And sometimes that's what it felt like, that I was just barely hanging on to his hem. But that's all I needed. As long as I could just hold on to the hem of your robe, God, I'm satisfied. And there were many times when I felt like the woman who had the issue of blood. If I could just touch the hem of his robe, I could be healed. And that's all. And some days that's how it felt.
So, how can you respond to somebody who says something like your mom, in a sense where this proves that there's no God? Like, he would never, because God was real, or it proves that God's not all powerful or all loving or something that would deny who the Christian God that we believe in is. Like, how would you respond?
I've thought of this question quite frequently too. And for myself, I have a choice. I could disbelieve and believe that there is no God because this happened, or I could choose to believe that it could have been worse and God saved her. It could have been so much worse. She could have died, which many times throughout her life probably could have happened. And I want to get into some of those too, because God's power in her life has been evident the whole way through. And there were times when it was even hard for me to pray for her because I didn't know how, and I didn't know what to say, and I didn't know if I could. And that was one of the things that I think is very tragic for when you're a young Christian and you're trying to follow God, and then a tragedy happens in your life, and people are too scared to be around you because they're afraid of what that implication to them is going to be like. So to say, don't do that, because these people desperately need you to prove that God has not forsaken. Because there were times when I felt like what Christ said on the cross, Lord, why did you forsake me? But I had to believe with all my heart that God was real, because that was my only hope for her life. And if God wasn't real, what guarantee did I have that she would live through the things that she had to deal with? How did I know that I could live seeing her go through the things she had to deal with? Like this past October when she had brain tumor, I saw Marlena fall apart and have a nervous breakdown and had to be on medication and because she doesn't have that belief. And to her, Amber was going to die. And for me, it was just like, but God's got this. And I didn't have to worry about falling apart and having a mental breakdown like I did at the very beginning, because I was still new. I've had a lot more years of seeing God's hand in her life that I knew was just like, no, I'm pretty sure God's got this. I know what they're saying, but I don't believe it. I would rather disbelieve what the doctors were saying and believe that God can do a miraculous healing, where Marlena didn't have that. So for me, it's just like, how can I not believe?
You like, even if God chose not to work in a healing way, there's not a hopeless.
There's still that hope. I have always believed that from the very beginning, God had Amber in his hands, that she never left, that regardless of what her life is here, at the end of her life, with the number of days that God has given her, she will be with him in glory. And I am 100% assured of that. I don't know why I'm 100% assured of that, but I am 100% assured of that based upon everything that I have seen him do in her life. And I think with every parent who has a special needs child, they might look at them and say, there's something about this child that is different from other children. And some of them maybe more so than others, but it's almost like you can see a different spirit in them. God has given them a special grace because they don't have that understanding. But I don't know. I am speaking of a non-theological thing that I know nothing about, only God does. But it's just something in me that believes firmly that she will not depart from here, but will go and be with him. And a lot of that has to do with the many times that God has spoken to me about things in her life. Back when she was 14, she had such a severe pancreatitis attack. She has a very high pain tolerance. So it wasn't until it was at a critical stage that they realized that there was something seriously wrong. So they took her to emergency and they found out that her pancreas had blown up and her lipase levels, I think they are. When you have a normal pancreatitis attack, which is extremely painful, your lipase numbers are probably about 500 to 700. Hers were in the 10,000s. So you can just imagine. And the doctors kept telling us that she was to be prepared. She was probably going to die. The foster mom, Marlena's mom, she couldn't deal with it. She was heartbroken. She fell apart, literally fell apart. And I'm left. Amber was still in the ministry's care at this point. I had zero say about anything for her. All I could do was sit with her. I couldn't say to them to do anything. I couldn't give them permission to do anything. All I could do was sit there with her and pray that God would not take her and that he would help her. And that's all I could do is just, Lord, please help her. And I sat with her that whole night. I never left her side. And then everybody came back in the morning and things started happening and she got put on tubes and stuff like that. The doctors kept saying, if she survives this, the stuff that they were pumping out of her stomach looked like coffee grounds. It was black bile. She was in an induced coma. She had IVs and PICC lines. And she was just lines and machines and everything everywhere. And they said, be prepared because she could still die. And if she doesn't die, she is going to need so many operations to repair all the damage that this is doing to her insides. And all I could do was pray for God to help her, to protect her, to save her life. And I remember there's one time I was driving down and it's funny, the things you remember. I was driving down Oak Street and they have all those funky houses there. And I was on my way to Children's Hospital and I'm just sobbing because I can't believe what the doctors keep telling us. And I said, Lord, please save her. Please save her. And I saved her once. I will save her again. And I'm just like, excuse me, what? Who said that? It was what? And it was on this side of my head. So not on this side. It was on the driver's side out the window. And I'm like, there's only a window here. And I'm like, who just spoke? And I just remember saying, God, if that was you, can she be home for her birthday? Because if the miracle's going to happen, let it be big. Right. This was go big or go home. Pretty much, right? This was July that this happened. Maybe it was near the end of June. I went to the hospital. I didn't say a thing because
The crazy world of your places.
yeah, they're going to put me in a straitjacket and lock me up in a rubber room. I just looked. I just watched Amber and I just kept it to myself. And it was, if you don't believe me, Marlene is pregnant. And I'm just like, okay. And then she's drinking ginger ale and I'm looking at her kind of going, she is. And she was. And I'm going, okay, I'm free. But I'm just going to sit here. I'm just going to watch Amber. And 2 weeks later, things started to change. All of her levels started to come down and she started to get better. And then she started waking up and they started taking tubes out of her. They started slowly feeding her. The doctors are sitting there going, we don't know how it happened. It's impossible. There's absolutely nothing wrong with her anymore. You can take her home. And it was a week before her birthday.
August.
September.
Sorry.
Yeah. So by the end of August, and then it's just like, yeah, you can take her home. She needed no operation and she was completely better. And they were just like, it makes no sense. And I'm just like, that's a pretty big God. And so that was the biggest thing aside from the initial thing that happened with her. And I prayed that Amber had a good family. She's been with this family since she was 5 years old and she's now 33. And Marlena loves her like a sister, like she's her own flesh and blood. And I couldn't ask for that.
So does everyone within the house.
Everybody. Oh yeah.
When her sisters and her son and boyfriend and everyone.
When Amber goes into the hospital, Marlena's son, Sean, becomes so distraught that he will sometimes just sleep in Amber's bed because he is so scared for her. He has got such a tender heart. And he's now dating a Christian girl. And he's already been asked to go to church. So we'll see how this goes. He says, I know it's going to happen, Mom, but I'm a little scared. Be scared. It's all good. It's all good. Christians that you pick me are just right. It's before I got custody of Amber back, and I have the majority of it.
That was only recent.
The only thing I don't have is the money aspect because that's run by the government. I have no say, and you can take the government to court to try to get that. The chances of me getting that are slim to none. So I'm fine with not dealing with the money side of it, but I do have all the other authority over her life. So anything that happens, where she goes, who she stays with, and any kind of medical procedures, I'm the one who signs for it all. So I've become mom again, which is so incredible.
And this only happened about 4 years ago, 5 years ago. So comparatively, a very long time. You're without that.
Yeah. And it's very tough as a mom because you want to be, but like there were times when the frustration over how people were acting from agencies and stuff where I just like, just give me the power because you guys aren't doing anything. And I want to, Lord, I want to do it all. And he's going, take your hands off. But it's okay because I know that God has her and he takes really good care of her. So in this last little bout, I became super mom.
Her recent one is
Kidney stones. Yeah. She was put in the hospital on the 13th of March with a severe, like a critical condition where she had a 12 millimeter stone blockage in her urethra that caused her right kidney to pretty much become a big balloon because the fluid wasn't going out and the infections all over the place. And again, it was another one of those terrifying situations. Is she going to lose a kidney? She just had brain surgery. Like, what the heck? And then the doctor, the urologists are saying, yeah, there's nothing we can do. We'll just put a tube in her and she may have to have this for the rest of her life. And I'm just like, excuse me? I don't think so. So she got this nephrostomy tube put in on the Thursday. On the Friday, it stopped working. But I had started giving her a homeopathic remedy. When the doctors had said this, I'm going, that's impossible. There's got to be something I can do. And I strongly believe that God gave me the boldness to go and search my stuff. And I'm going, I've got the remedies. I can't believe I've got the remedies.
Where you have but
I'm
suspecting of a kid.
Yeah. So I had these remedies. Everything has an expiry date. So I'm looking going, they're not expired yet. They have another year. Okay. Maybe I should just give it to her secretly. Nobody will know. So because
and this is like a homeopathic natural. So it would not be, there would be no contraindication with any medication and stuff like that. So Monique wasn't just going out there throwing things out that might disrupt any medication.
Exactly. A homeopathic remedy, they are special. They're these teeny tiny itty bitty little white pellets. And they're created specifically to target certain things. And they're very sweet. So you dissolve them under your tongue and they go to work into whatever. They will not affect other medications. If you're taking the wrong remedy, it won't do anything. You can't see it on the blood.
Overdose on it.
You can never overdose. Like my friend Kim, she has a little daughter, a 5-year-old daughter, who got into her remedy chest. She just downed a whole bunch of the remedies. She just started eating them like candy. And her mom's, oh my gosh. So she phoned her naturopath, and her naturopath just laughed. She says, if she has any of the ailments, they'll fix it. Otherwise, they're just going to go through, just won't do a thing. Because the remedies are specifically made to make your body heal itself, is really what they are. And anybody who's ever used remedy will know it's just, oh yeah, they're harmless unless you have this situation that they're supposed to, and then they're going to work for you. So that's really what this remedy was for. So once I knew what side the kidney was that was affected, I knew which remedy to get, which is called lycopodium clavatum and the 30CH. In case anybody's wondering, this is what it is. So the dose is 5 pellets 3 times a day, but I was only giving her 2 twice a day. On the 13th of March, the kidney stone was 12 millimeters. And then the stupid thing stopped working, but I kept giving her this remedy. Yeah, the nephrostomy tube, it stopped working. I actually talking to William's mom, because she works in, and she was just amazed. She says, yeah, this stuff is amazing. So we tried to get intervention radiology to come down and take a look at this tube, or to bring her back up and have them fix it, because it wasn't working. And she's got this kidney with all the infection, and it was huge, and the fluid wasn't coming out. But finally they brought her up, discovered it was Kate. So they pulled some urine out. The urine looked normal. It was a little cloudy, which said she still had an infection, but it wasn't bloody or anything like that. And then they did tests and said, yeah, her kidney is no longer critical. It's just minimal. And I'm just like, the nephrostomy tube hasn't been working for 4 days. It only worked for 24 hours when it was at critical. So I'm going, that remedy already started to heal her kidney to make it go from critical to minimal. So I'm like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So they said that they got it working, sent her back down to the ER. It was not working. So, but I kept giving her the remedy, and Amber was being normal. So there didn't seem to be too much of a concern about that. And they're just like, yeah, there's a little bit. Maybe she doesn't need it. Maybe she's being normal, whatever. And I'm just like, do you guys even know what you're doing anymore? Nobody knows what they're doing. So a week had gone. No, it wasn't even a week, because they had fixed it on the Monday. And then on the Tuesday, they sent her home. She was supposed to be in the hospital until Friday. Marlena's son was in provincial, so she didn't want to leave, but she didn't want to miss at least his last game. And they got the gold, by the way. I'm glad she went. But they sent Amber home without how to deal with the nephrostomy tube, what they were supposed to do to keep it, if to change the bandages or anything like that. And they weren't even making sure it was working. They were just assuming things. I'm like, why did they send her home? So when Marlena came back, and then over the weekend, she said, this isn't right. Took her back to emergency, checked all of her levels. Everything was still okay. Her infection was low and stuff like that, but the tube was not working. Made an appointment to go and see them that Tuesday. So now so she went in on the Wednesday. She got sent home on the Tuesday. We're back in the hospital on the Tuesday following to get it fixed. And so they replaced it with her screaming, and I freaked out, as a mom should, and told them that they were all a bunch of idiots who don't know what they're doing, because how dare you make my baby scream? So yeah, I was a little bit mama bear, and they sent her home. And then the next day, the site was pouring fluid, like urine, from her back, like a faucet. Marlena went white. Amber's gone white. It's like and Karen, who was like, Carrie, showed her, okay, taking you back to the hospital. They retaped it up, said, yeah, no, it just wasn't taped. They fixed it all up. And Marlena said, I am not taking her home. So we went, camped in the ER. After a few, they did another CT scan and they did some x-rays and stuff like that. And then after sitting in the hospital all day long, it was like 9 o'clock at night, finally got a hold of the doctor. And he said, yeah, so the stone, the 12 millimeter stone is now 7.5 millimeters. We don't know how that happened. And I'm just like, oh my gosh, the remedy was working. So I'm just like, yeah, wow. So I go and tell Marlena, her jaw hit the floor. So, excuse me, what? Because anybody who knows about kidney stones know they don't shrink. Broken up. They have to be broken up with a laser or with shock therapy or whatever. They don't shrink on their own. Yes, they do. Ask me for the remedy. We sit in the hospital. We're in the hospital for another, what is it? It was a couple of weeks now. We've been in there.
Yeah, it's hard to, the days have gone by weirdly.
They have, because there was the Easter long weekend.
So this included also happening right over Monique's birthday.
Yeah.
She
So
was trying to do choir at church, plus go in and out of the hospital, and her birthday came and she.
yeah, I had a 4-day weekend planned that was in the hospital. Happy birthday to me, which is all fine and dandy. But we finally got a hold of a urologist. So the urologist came and he says, so this is what we're going to do. Friday, he does these things. So he's going to fit her in, and actually found out that the one that we got is a really nice guy, according to William's mom.
Oh, wait.
She knows who he was. I just said, he's a good doctor. So she said, you got a good doctor. So I was like, oh, okay, that's good. Because I prayed that we had a good doctor. So we did. Because there was supposed to be this other doctor. She says, oh, I'm really glad you did get him because he's really not a good doctor. Okay, I'm really glad we got him then. So he actually did the procedure to go in and extract the stone and put in a stent. Only we found out afterwards that he couldn't find the stone. It had disappeared. They did a CT scan. Stone is gone. Don't know why. Don't know how that happened.
Again, if you want to know the
remedy, if you want to know the remedy, I've got you. So now she does have the stent in her. The nephrostomy tube is out. She will hopefully go home tomorrow or the next day at the very latest, because she really doesn't need to be in there anymore. Because the longer she's in the hospital, the more at risk she is of catching something else.
So I think when you look back Amber's life and your parenting, what would you say were the struggles of being a single mom? Like just some of the struggles that you felt as being a single mom, like a special needs child, that
I think for me, the hardest part was not being able to be her mom. Everybody said, but you are her mom. Yes, I know I'm her mom, but I couldn't be mom. I had to let somebody else do the mothering. I could go and visit her and sit with her and play with her. But when it came to her general care, cleaning her up, feeding her, I couldn't give that to her because that was taken away from me pretty much by force.
but I think too there was a lot of just like arm twist.
There was a lot of arm twisting. Yeah. And I watch a lot of Asian dramas, and there's always that power struggle between those who have and those who have not. And those who have always look down on those who have not. And that's what I felt like. I was the one who had not. I was the dirt on the ground, the mat people wipe their shoes on. It was pretty much how I felt. And it's a very distressing thing to feel, to have that happen. Regardless of the situation, we're still people. We still have feelings. And it wasn't like I wasn't a drinker. I wasn't a drug dealer. I didn't.
You weren't addicts. You weren't.
No, and I wasn't out partying.
Mom.
Yeah. I just needed help. I just needed support. I just needed somebody to walk alongside of me and help me navigate what was happening. And I didn't have that. Instead, I had people throwing rocks at me. And I hurt so much through all of that. Feeling like you were in a fishbowl and wondering, like, why are you guys doing this to me when I wasn't the cause of what happened? I died. A part of me died when she was hurt. And I hated myself because I wasn't there to protect her. And that was the thing that was the hardest thing for me. But I was still like, You were the mom. You should have been there. Somebody had to work. Somebody had to make money. It wasn't like I didn't want to live on welfare for the rest of my life. I didn't want that for my daughter. I didn't want to be that mother. And I couldn't stand just sitting at home doing nothing, living off of the world. That's irresponsible in my eyes. My mom didn't do it. She took in kids. She ran a day home. Even my dad was working too. But in order to make extras, she took kids in. It's hard to describe. It's hard to explain really, but I just felt it was what I needed to do. I wanted to be a responsible provider for my child.
And I think as any parent, whether you're married or you're together or you're not, especially with your first child, you don't know anything. You don't. You're going to do the best you can with the information out at the time. And
babies don't come with
how-to manuals.
Yeah. But it was also, I was with Amber's dad for a while. And then I left him and moved back to Calgary where my family was. And then he started coming around again and wanting to be the dad. He wasn't a nasty person. He was just a cheap person. Like he couldn't keep his hands to himself. He liked other girls too much. And I was a stupid young person who didn't have the strength to say this is wrong. It can't be like that. So, but he was good. He didn't go, cheating around when we got back together with her. But then he started to go a little weird, wanted to be this biker dude. And then he was always a heavy drinker, which I hated too. After a while, it was just like, this, yeah. And then I became a Christian. And he seemed to be okay with it. But I had a friend who said, if Jesus came back today and saw you in bed with him, how do you think that's going to be? Oh, okay. All right. What am I going to do? It was a whole, she had no right to say anything like that to me anyways. It was all completely wrong. And what we should have been doing instead was trying to see how we could make the relationship be fixed, because there was no animosity between us. We were fine together. Whatever, it's water under the bridge. And after everything that happened, he abandoned us anyway. So whatever. It is what it is.
I think you can probably look back and see God coming alongside as the father that has claimed to be not only to you, but for Amber.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean that if you're a single father, that God's going to become the mother, or that you're going to have two dads.
It's just a different dynamic where God does step in and walk with you through that. But it's the struggles of being a single parent. I don't think I can speak too well into that because I had such a short experience with it. And then it was just me being on the sidelines watching in. And that was the sad part of it. Desperately trying to do the best I can on my own without any support. And that's something that I would probably say the strongest thing, whether you're male or female, is that you make sure you have a support system in place for people that will help you, who will speak life into you and not criticism and not berate you and not make you feel
you need to get married so your kid has a father or a mother, because that's not a fix.
That's not a fix. And a lot of times that can also turn into a disaster. If you are fortunate enough to find, I know this happened with a girl I know, her husband was killed in a horrible traffic crash and she had two very young daughters, and his best friend stepped in to help her, but he just helped. He didn't, and eventually they ended up falling in love, getting married, having more kids.
But his purpose was not.
Or that his purpose was, I'm his best friend. I need to help his widow with her children so that she's not left alone. And funny thing is, I always thought he was gay, but apparently he's not. So, hello, surprise, he never found the one he wanted, which is perfectly fine, right? We always have these when you come from the world and you step into the Christian circle, you come with a lot of preconceived notions that can be a little bit more colorful than normal. So forgive me for that. Sometimes that happens, but it doesn't always, because we also know another young lady with 3 boys who is desperate to get married and can't find the right person because she is desperate to get married. Don't be desperate, because that's when you fall into the mistakes. Live your life the best you can.
I think I'd like to do the maybe next or podcast. But the thing is if you learn to live your life as if it's now is never changing, like the circumstances you're in right now, if they never change, like how do you live your life? And it's you're going to just go into a depression and be like, oh, I can't live my life like this. Then there's a false idol in your life, because if you cannot be content where God has put you, it really reminds me of the parable of the talents. You can't even take one talent and even put it in the bank to invest it. Like, why do you even get that? You can't even take the situation that God has placed you in and use it completely, fully in the way that intended. It really will not matter if it changes.
Yep.
And if you take I think, and I'm not a single parent, but you take that single parent and you be like, okay, this is how it is at the moment. If it never changes, I'll still be okay.
Yep.
Even though you really want to have that second parent, you really want to have that spouse you're not alone. It doesn't mean that it'll never happen, but it also doesn't mean that it will happen. That will.
I think my biggest mistake in those early years was not getting the counseling I should have in order to, like, I did some trauma counseling and I'd gone through some abuse counseling, but I never really got deep with a counselor to resolve exactly all the things that were going on. And I wallowed in walk alongside me and help me to navigate what brought me to that place in the first place, and how to get rid of all of those kind of feelings so that I could live a little bit more of a productive life, because I wasted a lot of years before I finally started to live again, which has only been since 2006. That's not a very long time. This all happened in the early 90s. So look at how much time I wasted just doing nothing, just surviving.
Yeah. So I hope that like our discussion or like your story and your experience has been able to just open up people's eyes to what it is to be a single parent. There are people who do lose their children.
Yeah.
For sometimes choices they've made, sometimes not of their own choice. And there's people who are just dealing with it where they have their child, but they don't have any support.
No, don't try to navigate this thing. There are many women who have gone out there and have purposely gotten pregnant because they want to have a baby. They have that emptiness inside of them, and they think a baby's going to fill it. And when one baby doesn't, maybe another one will. And then you've got some of these young moms, they're single moms, they got all these children, no fathers, because it's been one after another. And
Or even in this day and age with fertility treatments.
And I hear it like just from a couple of days ago from this other young girl who was saying like, yeah, I want to have a baby one day, but I don't want to have a father with it. And I'm just like, oh, wow. That she's thinking of adopting. And I've heard of that too, because you can adopt even as a single person. And I'm like, it's so hard to raise a child by yourself, because
that to purposely create the single parenthood
yeah,
for the child. There are no like accident or divorce or anything. You're actually purposely circumventing the family dynamic that God has created because you want something.
yeah. And I've seen it time and time again where you don't get a lot from the ministry. If you're not working, and if you are working, you don't get a lot that way either, especially if you got more than one child to feed. And then there's daycare, and then there's it's hard to raise a child when you're a 2-parent family. And don't do that to yourself. Don't do that to the child. Don't give up on your life just now because you want to have a child. If it's such a desperate need for you, find out why it's such a desperate need for you. What are you missing in your life that you want to fill out with a child? That may not be the thing.
And what would happen if you never fulfill that?
Yeah. What if you absolutely can't have?
But just ask yourself, I think it's a good question. When you really want something, ask yourself, what would I feel? What would I do if I never got this? Because it can really show where your heart is actually. Because if you say, I'd be depressed and life wouldn't be worth living and all this type of stuff, then you're telling God that he's not enough.
Yeah.
And that there's something else that's going to make your life enough complete instead of God.
And then it becomes an idol in your life. So I wouldn't give my daughter up for anything in the world. There were times I wish I could turn back the clock and do that whole thing all over again and not do the things I did that put her in this situation. I wouldn't change her for the life of me. She is such an angel. She is a beautiful girl, and I love her to pieces. And I know that the other side of the veil, she will be whole and complete the way she should have been.
Even more so.
Even more.
But she will be without sin.
Yeah, that too.
Have a new body and
A new body. No,
same soul.
same soul. But I wouldn't want to wish the struggles that I have had. It's a very difficult, very hard road to walk. As a single parent, whether you are caring for a special needs child or whether you've given it to somebody else to care for, you're leaving your child's life in the hands of somebody else, and you've got to trust that. And there are group homes and stuff where it's appalling situations where the kids are left in corners hours on end. Nobody does anything with them. Amber was fortunate because God provided a home that loves her and does everything for her and cares for her. And she may have moments where she's sitting by herself, but she's not uncared for. She's playing on her tablet or she's watching TV or she's taking a nap, but she's not left in a corner where nobody is caring for her. Marlene is right on top of it. The minute she's, nope, something's wrong, off to the hospital. We're back in the hospital again.
That father would provide needs in the sense that he's been able to meet her needs of like care, and he is able to meet the needs of her through you as a mother, and able to meet the needs of her during the miracles that he's performed in her life.
Yeah. There's a song by Mercy Me called Bring the Rain. And it starts, sometimes people ask me with all the things that I've gone through, how I could still praise you. And it's like, how can I not? Even with this latest one where he's a God who moves mountains. Stars don't shine unless he tells them to. How can I not worship you? And
in case you're wondering, we went to a Mercy Me concert on the weekend, and
I'm a little Mercy Me
that's
full of it. A few
how
of
can
them.
I not worship?
Yes. It's a beautiful song, and I would recommend finding it on YouTube and listening to it because it's pretty awesome. And it is about, there's this wave going around right now where a lot of Christians are deconstructing, and a lot of them are walking away from their faith. And he wrote this song based upon that. And I can relate because there were times where I sit there, I can't. I wish, no, I can't. I cannot walk away from him because I'm more afraid to walk away from God than I am to walk with him, if that makes sense. Does it? Yeah. Because he holds Amber's life in his hands. And I'm afraid if I walk away, he's going to take her away. No, I can't. I just can't walk away.
She's not thinking of it like a hostage situation.
No, it'll cost you $1 million.
How could you walk away when he has done so much for Amber? Like it doesn't register.
No, it doesn't. And I do struggle sometimes, more worried that this is the time, this is the last time. Is this the last time, Lord? Is this the last miracle she gets? Let this not be the last miracle. Let there be more in her life. Because I know that eventually it's very unusual for special needs children, especially when it happens like a brain injury so long ago. And the complex care that she has, and some of it is genetic. some of it is just because of her disabilities and whatnot. They have already predicted she probably won't live a long time. She's 33 now. And I'm like, oh Lord, I know she's the same age as Jesus now when he left this earth to go back home. Tell myself these things. I know but I do know that when it comes to special needs, a lot of them don't have a long life expectancy. But I have seen many who have gone on to be quite elderly. So let this not be their last miracle. And apparently it wasn't, because there was another one down the road. So
God is a God of miracle.
yeah. And he has performed so many of them in her life. And maybe that is where God says, this is where you are mom. Because the minute something goes wrong, I rally everybody and their dog to start I don't know if the dog breeds, but
He cares, right?
I'll just come and sit with you and put my head on you. Are you okay? I know people from so many churches around the world, which is bizarre. Where did they all come from? Y'all are going to pray for my daughter now. Okay. Whether you're English speaking or Korean speaking, I'm going to get you to pray for my daughter, because that's how it happens. And maybe that was my purpose. And then for God to show what he can do miraculously, where even the doctor's going, it makes no sense. This isn't the first time a doctor has said, it makes no sense when it comes to Amber. It doesn't make sense. And I'm just sitting there going, it does if you know a great big God. So thank you for letting me share my story.
Yeah, I hope that the people who are listening enjoyed seeing God's work through you, how far you've come, and the joy that you have in your daughter, and that she has in you. She's always asking for mom.
Yep. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, sure.
To wash your hands. Mom.
Oh, yeah,
your
sure.
mom's coming.
Oh, yeah, sure. And then I show up like, you were calling me. I don't like you. Now what did I do? You love mommy, right? No. You hate me now again? Yep.
She giggles.
Yeah, she giggles because she knows we're just playing. And I know she's just,
Special.
because when she holds onto my hand, she doesn't let go very easily.
She knows you as her mom.
She does. Yes. And then a lot of times where she sees me and she gets all squealy and stuff. Oh, are you excited to see me? No. But it has taught me so much about grace, about joy, about life. Yeah. Because she could be an unhappy, but she is always happy. And everybody says, when there's something wrong with Amber because she's not happy. And because she's always happy. And even when she's sick, she can still be happy. But when it's really serious, then because then her happy is changed. Something's wrong. She's not happy.
Good indication. Thank you for joining us here on this day for this story.
A special podcast about a special girl.
Yes. Amber's story and Monique's story and God's story.
God's story.
So if you have any questions, like what's that homeopathic remedy for kidney stones or anything else or any comments that you like to read, you can find us on Instagram, Facebook, and X. And you can email us at root77ministries@gmail.com. That's ROUTE 73s@gmail.com. And yeah, we'll see you here next time.
Bye for now. And thank you for listening.
Thank you for joining us on this heartfelt journey through the life of Monique and her daughter, Amber. Their story is a testament to the strength found in faith and the miraculous workings of God in their lives. If today's episode touched your heart or sparked curiosity, we'd love to hear from you. You can reach out to us on our social platforms or email us directly. Until next time, keep faith in your heart and remember to live your single life to its fullest.